Welcome, boys and girls. This week's episode is brought to you by the letter W. Let's talk about yesterday's game.
Elbow, forearm, he's going to be down.
The result of the play is a touchdown.
And then the flag that was thrown on this was picked up.
I don't know, did it get the face mask?
So by rule, the game is over.
The Lions Hangover.
Welcome to the Lions Hangover. Let's take care of some real quick business. If you're seeing this, you're watching me on YouTube. If you're hearing this, you're probably listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast. If you do one, check out the other if you just want to be an audio person, but you're a visual person. If you're a visual person, you want to be an audio person, check out the podcast. All right, first up, the Lions get it done. They win against Washington, and what an excellent game it was. Lions jumped out to a 22-0 first half lead. It was amazing. Aiden Hutchinson recorded his first sack, but not just his first sack. He recorded 3 sacks all in the first half, and this is the first time a rookie has done this in 20 years. The last time it happened was in 2002 when Julius Peppers, Carlos Hall, and Brad Lieber all did it. So as far as the coaching goes, it was a much better game as far as the play calling, the scheming, and all of that. The only thing I had a problem with was when they decided to go for it on 4th down in the red zone. At this point, if they kicked the field goal, I believe it would have made it it would have made it 6-0, and I was thinking, hey, you at least got to go up by a touchdown. But they decided to go for it. I do like being aggressive. I just, you want to pick and choose your aggressiveness. But even though they did not convert on the 4th down or get a touchdown, it did lead to a safety, which was amazing. And that almost could have been a touchdown had Aiden Hutchinson saw the ball in the end zone. It was like he saw it just as it was bouncing out, and it was just so close. But it was... Man, that place was loud. Ford Field was amazing. It was quite the effort by the defense in the first half. They only allowed 56 yards on offense in the first half. Washington could not do anything. They couldn't throw. They couldn't run. And then after halftime, Washington comes out. They make some adjustments, or maybe Detroit lets off the gas pedal a little bit. They did not have the same intensity on defense in the second half. Washington scores 15 unanswered points. Things are starting to get a little bit close. I think at that time it was 22-15, and honestly, I was nervous. I was like, here comes the same old Lions. But thank God for DeAndre Swift. He had a 22-yard touchdown reception after catching the ball. After catching the ball, and he dropped to the ground quickly, but he got up and he ran it in. Swift is an amazing athlete. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had a near perfect game. He did have one drop at the end, but we won, so it's not even a big deal. Okudah had a pretty solid game. He was in and out with some cramps in the second half. Supposedly, he'll be meeting with some nutritionists to help solve this problem. I hope it happens because he had a pretty solid game. This is 2 weeks in a row he had a solid game. It's like the confidence is building, and you can see it on the social media pages. Like people are starting to come around to Okudah. I think we're starting to be a little bit more impressed with him, but he still has a long way to go. But he is on the right track, so he's just got to stay on the field and keep making those big plays. So the Lions have scored at least 35 points in the first 2 home opening games back-to-back since 1970. That was the last time they did that. So their offense is doing something fantastic. And I also have to give some props to the special teams. Jack Fox is a punting god. He punted 5 times for 277 yards, averaging 55 yards a punt. This is probably about 10 to 13 yards more than the average punt. At the end of the game statistically. So he did pin them behind the 20-yard line once. You kind of want to see that a little bit higher, especially for 5 punts. But still, the coverage on the punt returns was amazing. Even Khalif Raymond, he had a huge, I think it was a 50-plus yard return. Overall, Goff had a solid statistic day. You look at this on paper, he had a fantastic day. He was 256 yards passing. He had 4 touchdowns for a 121.7 passer rating. This is everything you want from a quarterback. But if you watch the game, even if you listen to the game, you saw it. The passes that he missed were wildly inaccurate. Throws were over players' heads. They were behind players. They were led too far. If the ball was over 15 yards, he just cannot complete. That's not in his wheelhouse. He cannot throw it. He's not accurate. But it did not cost us today. He had no turnovers. And statistically, like I said, he looked great. Swift only rushed the ball 5 times. I think they were kind of taking it easy on his ankle. I know he had some injuries earlier in the week. But he did finish with 56 yards rushing. He had 2 catches for 31 yards with that touchdown, that 22-yard touchdown run. Jamal Williams ran the ball much more. He ran it 12 times for 53 yards. That's pretty good average. I think that's just over 4 yards per carry, which is what you would want. And even Craig Reynolds carried the ball quite a few times. And then Josh Reynolds also had a touchdown today. He had 3 receptions with 38 yards. DJ Chark was targeted. Excuse me. Man, I got an itchy throat. DJ Chark was targeted a few times, but he did not get a single reception. I would like to see him get more involved. I think Hockenson had 3 catches as well. Of course, you want to see him get more involved. But as of right now, things are going great with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He had 9 catches, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he had a monster reverse. He finished with 2 rushes for 68 yards. So let's take a look at a few other stats. Overall, the Lions had 17 first downs. Washington had 21. The Lions were 4 for 13 on third down. And again, most of that I feel like was because of Jared Goff, his inaccuracy, his inefficiency. I'm not trying to come down on the dude. I do like him. We all want him to succeed. Even the Jared Goff haters want him to succeed because nobody wants to hate their quarterback. But he's just so inconsistent and inaccurate. They were 0 for 2 on fourth downs. They could not complete a 4th down conversion. Washington, on the other hand, did complete one of those. They only allowed 3 sacks. Not bad for a banged-up offensive line in week 2. Only 3 sacks. Washington, on the other hand, gave up 5 sacks. Like I said, Aiden Hutchinson got 3 of those, all in the first half, which that was amazing. You really thought going into the second half, man, this guy could actually get 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 sacks. It was so amazing to see him do what he had to do. It was a good bounce-back game for Aiden Hutchinson. Nobody was really penalized. Washington had 2 penalties for 17 yards, and Detroit only had 1 penalty for 5 yards. I believe that was an illegal formation. It was only a 5-yard penalty, if I remember right. I kind of like to see that. I like to see that a lot. There was maybe a couple questionable pass interference calls, or maybe even holding calls on Aiden Hutchinson, where I felt like he got held up a little bit from Washington. But overall, I don't care as long as it's equal on both sides. Let the teams play, let them figure it out, and the refs did that today. So I feel like it was a great game officiated by the refs. Nothing too crazy. The Lions had 27 minutes and 57 seconds of time of possession, where Washington had 32 minutes and 3 seconds of possession. Carson Wentz did throw 1 interception. Lions had no turnovers. It was a very clean game. No turnovers, very few penalties. So that's kind of like what you want to see. That's good discipline. That comes from the coaching staff. There were a couple close, that one could have been picked off throws. But overall, it was a pretty solid, clean, tight game. They only have just a few things they need to clean up. Total yards of offense, Detroit had 425. Washington had 396. So that's like 340 yards in the second half that Washington had. Passing yards was 308 for Washington, 234, as we were saying earlier, from Goff. Rushing yards, though, 191 rushing yards for Detroit. That is amazing. That is pure dominance on the ground. You like to see that. The Lions were averaging 7 yards per offensive play. It was just overall a solid day. Even when you thought the same old Lions were going to come back when Washington scored 15 unanswered points, you were, because the Lions sputtered on their first 2 offensive drives coming out of halftime. And then it was like they started getting it together, and then they would score, and then Washington would score, and Detroit would come right back. And excuse me, man, dry throat. It's not the COVID, I promise. I might take a sip of water here. Okay. So yeah, even when you thought Washington was going to come back and the game was going to get stressful, the Lions just never let up, especially on offense. They kept going. They scored 14 points in the second half. It was just a solid performance by the offense all the way around, even with Goff not being as accurate as you would like to see. And it's not that he didn't complete enough passes or there weren't enough passing attempts. I don't expect any quarterback to complete every single pass. It's just that the ones he did miss were, man, what is going on there? Like he just couldn't do it. Of course, he does it better than any of us can do it. So it was a solid game. The final was 36-27. I'm going to edit out all this coughing. You guys will never know. I'll be the healthiest guy on the internet. So it was a good game. But looking forward to next week against Minnesota. Now, Minnesota plays tonight, so some of this is going to have to... I'm not exactly sure who Minnesota is. Of course, they beat up on Green Bay last week, but Green Bay seems to always take the first week off, at least the last few years. So is Minnesota good, or is Green Bay just giving up? Who knows? But let's see. For next week, the Lions should be able to contain Kirk Cousins. He's not a mobile quarterback. A lot of similarities, I feel, between him and Carson Wentz. So I see the defense coming with some pressure. Hopefully they can put together a solid 60 minutes and not just a half of a game. Minnesota, though, they've got some dangerous wide receivers, and defending the pass is our weak spot on defense. So I look for Jefferson and Thielen to have a good game, even Cook out of the backfield. As far as him running the ball, I'm sure he will have a couple big plays, but overall I think the Lions are going to be able to stop the run. But I do worry about the passing game. Now, this is a game I feel the Lions could win, even if Minnesota wins tonight. The Lions are not going to be favored by any means, but I do feel like they'll be able to hang with the Vikings. The game will be close. Hopefully they can pull it out at the end. The Lions should be able to run the ball. Again, I look for Goff to have just over 200 yards, a couple touchdowns, probably an interception, maybe 2 interceptions. That seems to be par for the course. He still only had 234 yards passing. Not a ton of yards for a quarterback. You always want to see them around 300 or just over 300. That's a good passing game. But 4 touchdowns, you can't beat it. He got it done when he needed to. So congrats to Jared Goff. But, yeah, find me on social media. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And I will see you next week for another edition of The Lions Hangover.